I feel like almost every deal at some point is on the verge of falling apart. Truly, truly. I'd like to say that there are usually 15 plays going on behind the scenes that a really good agent will just handle and not freak the clients out about. But one of the ways that we really try to combat that is we will work with trusted vendors. Like, there are several lenders and closing attorneys that I know always do their job to the best of their ability. And when they're on the team, I don't have anything to worry about when it's their turn. Trust me, I wish that I could drive the entire journey because I know that things would be done efficiently and accurately and with integrity. But I am not always driving the ship. At a certain point in the transaction, the lender takes over and then the attorney takes over. And I have to kind of sit and I keep in touch with them to make sure that we are on track and there's been no problems, in underwriting or with the title search while they're running point on the deal. But yes, every deal at some point, I think tries to go off of the rails. There are certainly some stories I've had. Some experiences where, down to the closing table, there was back and forth over repairs. And I'm not necessarily even talking about thousands of dollars. Sometimes it could be nitpicky hundreds of dollars. And how do we come to terms? Because this is a very emotional process. And you've got sides who, a seller typically wants the most amount of money with the least amount of risk. A buyer is always concerned that they have overpaid, and the buyer always feels, but I gave you all this money. Why won't you do this thing that I think is important? And a seller, depending on the relationship that we've had and the experience we've had with the buyer side, could be like, at every turn, you are haggling and arguing and turning everything into a negotiation. And no, I am not willing to play nice anymore. At some point, sometimes things get to that level. But again, this is where I say that a consummate professional is the calm one and the voice of reason. But yes, there have been situations that even at the closing room table, you were kind of wondering if we're going to actually complete this transaction, or if somebody is just going to throw their hands up in the air and say, I'm over it, I quit. There have certainly been some times where we've had to be on the phone with attorneys, walking people through what this could look like if they choose not to complete the purchase. So it's very emotional. I mean, there have been some stories, I'm not going to name names, but there have been some closings that it was not my client, but I was around. There was a closing that was supposed to happen. It did not happen because one of the parties committed a crime and the law was looking for them. Every brokerage in town could write a book. You can't make this stuff up. There is never a dull moment. My favorite phone calls often start with, "You're not going to believe this." And I'm like, let me sit down. Hit me. And then the broker in charge in you wonders, okay, well, who messed up? Did we mess up, or did the other side mess up? How do I fix this? But that's why you have the physician broker in charge. We know the law, we know the liability. And oftentimes, if there's a problem between, the buyer and the seller, and it gets escalated up the ladder, then the managers will get involved, and we will try to find a win-win path forward, as we call it. But again, not everybody knows the laws like we do, and they really try to dictate their next steps with their feelings. Well, you did this, and now I don't want to do this, and, I just won't sell it to you, or I just won't buy it, then they can keep the house. These are things that are very common, and this is where we do try to explain the law says this, right? But you could talk to any attorney in town, and they might interpret what this black and white contract says 5 to 10 different ways. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to what can we negotiate? And it really comes down to what a buyer and a seller are willing to do. And let us not forget, no seller in town has any equity if there is not a buyer willing to come to the table with money. So it really is a two-way partnership. But there's so many feelings involved. And that is why I would always tell you, you need a professional who knows what they're doing. Most of all on my deals close. but I don't make the decisions. I'm the guide. We do what our client wants.